Okay, we are now with Mrs. Yara Boff Tonella from Amnesty International, and we are going to talk about a little bit about this new report that is focused over Curazao. And welcome, Yara. Welcome to
Thank you.
On the CW.
Thanks for having me.
Yara, why this report says that Curazao and the Netherlands violate the rights of Venezuelans?
Well, in the first place, because Curazao has violated the rights of Venezuelans seeking protection, because they're being denied the right to seek international protection. They're still automatically detained in a detention center, and children are also detained and separated from their parents. So that's in the first place Curazao, but also the Netherlands, because the Netherlands has supported Curazao in the last years in the field of migration. And it has supported Curazao mostly in the field of detection, detention, and deportation, without being really critical about what's going on and if there are any human rights violations going on. So that's why we say the Netherlands has also contributed to this system of human rights violations.
What kind of violations we're talking about?
Yeah, so there are different violations. In the first place, when people are intercepted at a boat by the Coast Guard, they're being handed over to the migration police. And the migration police takes them to the police station where they're already detained and they're forced to sign a deportation order in Dutch. Well, I guess most of the Venezuelans don't understand Dutch, so they have to sign something. They don't know what it is exactly. They are not explained their rights, and they cannot access a lawyer. And then they're being detained in the foreigners' barracks, and the conditions in the barracks are really inhumane. People are detained there for an indefinite time, so they don't know when they're going to get out. There are cases of physical abuse. Men had to leap like frogs naked. And children are also detained and separated from their parents without any authorization, of course, of their parents.
Understand, but you're aware that there is an issue actually with the border between Venezuela and the ABC Islands. So I guess that might make things a little bit more complicated.
Yes, that's true. And we also concluded that it's almost impossible for Venezuelans to arrive in Curazao in a legal way. So because they cannot go by plane, they cannot go on a regular boat. So they're forced to step on a boat by smugglers. So they have to go on these small lanchas to get to Curazao with all the risks that are involved.
What is the role of Amnesty International in situations like this?
Well, Amnesty International is, of course, an international human rights organization. We've researched the position of Venezuelans in Curazao already in 2018. And since then, we've been receiving different alarming signals about the situation of Venezuelans. So that's why we decided to do a follow-up research. And research is one of the most important weapons we have, is to provide information about human rights violation and, of course, to call upon governments to stop these violations. So research is our tool to address these issues.
There is something that calls my attention. Why these reports so far are only focused on Curazao and not in Aruba, for example? That,
yeah.
As far as I know, they use similar policies.
That's true, and it's a very good question, because we've also been hearing similar stories about Aruba. Well, we've already done research about different hosting countries, so Peru, Colombia, Trinidad and Tobago, and of course Curazao in 2018. We decided to do this follow-up research. Of course, we would have liked to also research Aruba, but this research already has taken half a year, and of course we have limited resources. Sometimes we have to decide what we're going to do, and that's what we had to do. That doesn't mean we don't pay attention to what's going on in Aruba, and this research may also be a wake-up call for Aruba as well.
So you think we can also expect a report about Aruba at some point?
I cannot promise anything because I don't know, but of course we'll be really alert on what's going on the ABC Islands.
Okay, one thing, after having published the previous report, the then Minister of Justice, he said that Amnesty International never approached him previously to know what are the government thoughts. Is that true?
No, that's not true. I was actually very surprised to hear him say that because our researcher in 2018 already approached the Ministry of Justice. She talked to officials, and then we had a work visit in 2019. Our director and colleague tried to get an appointment with the Minister of Justice, but he wasn't there. They did meet Prime Minister Regenaat, so we have many pictures of that. I mean, we have a lot of evidence of that. And it's a pity because we do want to start a conversation with, of course, back then, Minister Grigori, and now, of course, with PISAS, because the worst thing that can happen is that it just disappears and nothing changes. We want to start a dialogue with the Curazao authorities. So we really would like to invite him to start conversation with us and to see how we can together think of ways to improve the situations.
We can understand that for any government, it would be nice to read this kind of reports. Some people even suggest that there could be a political agenda behind this. What do you think about that?
Well, like I said before, Amnesty International is a human rights organization. We're not a political organization. So we do research about human rights violations. And if we see them, we will write them down and call upon governments to stop them. And in this case, unfortunately, we've seen many human rights violations. Like I said, children are still being detained, separated from their parents. People are being detained under terrible conditions. So we have to write it down, and that's not a political agenda, but it is a human rights agenda.
Okay. On occasions, the government of Curacao has referred to the mass of Venezuelan immigrants as economic immigrants. That means people who immigrate seeking a better quality of life, like any other immigrant. And not because their integrity is being under threat. So what does Amnesty International think about that?
Well, we disagree with that because people from Venezuela are going to other places, other countries. They don't seek a better quality of life. They try to survive. They don't see any other option than to leave the country because, of course, there's a big crisis. There's hunger. People cannot feed their children anymore. People don't get the health care they need. Diabetics can die because there's no insulin. And at the same time, there are mass human rights violations going on, and that's also being confirmed by the UN. And the general threat is there. So it's more than only an individual threat, but it's a general threat, and you just don't know who you can trust, who you can rely on, and when your life is at stake. So we definitely disagree with people saying they're just economic migrants.
That was Yara Boff Tonella. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
All your answers. And we expect you to have you back here in Curacao in a more positive way for us in the next time.
Let's hope so.